Perfect. So we have a little flow map here. What we'll do is we'll go through the overall flow of the integration, and then we'll actually jump into the back end. I'll show you how to build that integration, and then we'll test it out together live here. So starting on our left side, really your process starts in Splash now, and that's going to stay true for all of the integrations we talk about today. As you create that specific webinar event in Splash, and remember, as Zach showed, we want to trigger it tied to that webinar event type. Our BlueJeans integration will automatically create a BlueJeans event. One thing to note there is that we specifically integrate with BlueJeans events, not BlueJeans meetings. As you get that created and get all that data mapped over, and you start to promote your Splash webinar page and start to collect RSVPs, in real time, all of those RSVPs will get triggered and sent over to BlueJeans. On the BlueJeans side, the participant list really only requires emails, so there's no really mapping exercise there. We simply take all the emails and map them over. From there, the confirmation email is triggered out of BlueJeans. It has all of the data you need to join the webinar, call in, dial in information, all of that. Fast forward a little bit, and now let's say you're hosting your webinar. The integration in real time will change everyone's Splash status to checked in as they join the webinar. So call it, I don't know, the first 15 minutes of the webinar as people start to trickle in, those statuses will get flipped along with a timestamp. So you can see exactly when all of your attendees actually joined. And then not pictured on this flow map, but also optional in the integration is checkout timestamp. So if you really wanted to know how long are attendees staying in your webinar, what's the drop-off point, you could opt to sync over checkout data as well. And that'll just, once again, change the status to checked out with a timestamp once an attendee actually leaves the webinar. So it's just some added data for you to work with if you're curious about that kind of information.
Faisal, I love that. And the big thing I'll call out here is that check-in is so critical, right? Having a record of who showed up on the webinar and being able to automate that. The beautiful thing is when that check-in occurs, if your Splash is connected to your Salesforce or your Marketo or Eloqua, your HubSpot, that checked-in status is going to sync back to those systems of record automatically too. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so crucial.
Okay, let's take a look under the hood.
Awesome. So I'm going to take over the screen share here, and then, like I mentioned, we'll take a look at the configuration, and then we'll look at the full integration demo live. Alrighty, so our process, what we're looking at now, just the Splash dashboard. Like I mentioned, we'll take a look at the back end of the integration, what it really takes to set it up, and then we'll take a look at the demo. So here you see I have my BlueJeans integration. Up top, authentication. As an admin in the BlueJeans portal, you can easily generate this client ID in secret and just copy paste it over into Splash. Down here, you're simply giving your integration a name, something unique that only lives within Splash. And then here we have our two actions. So the initial action, create event, which is telling us when should we create the event in BlueJeans. And I'm saying I want to create the event based on Splash event creation. And if there's any updates to my Splash event, I want those to sync over as well. So if I launch this event and then I decide, hey, I actually need to adjust the date and time, I can do that in one place and not worry about having to manually update that in BlueJeans. The next piece is inviting guests. So the only option we give you here is to invite guests to this webinar based on when they registered. And then I think one of the big configuration triggers here that I want to call out is this specific trigger condition. So for webinars specifically, and for this BlueJeans integration, you only might want it to fire when you are creating a certain type of event, right? A virtual event, a webinar event, whatever that might be. When we fast forward a little bit and things start to calm down and we start having in-person events again, we're not going to want to create a BlueJeans webinar for every happy hour we have. So we give you the ability to say, hey, take a look at these specific event types, which you can fully upload and brand through your implementation or customer success manager, and only fire this integration when the type of event is an FM testing event in this case. And then lastly down here, two of our big features that we had mentioned. So do you want to sync the check-ins from BlueJeans back to Splash? I would be very surprised if anyone had this unchecked. It is a big value add of the integration, and we make it that simple, a simple checkbox. But we also have an added feature here. Do you want to sync checkouts from BlueJeans to Splash? So the use case here is, do you really want to measure how long people are staying in your webinar, or at what point is the bulk of your attendees dropping off of the webinar, and get that insight of kind of average time spent, etc. So you're highly encouraged to use it, but you don't have to. So from here, we've seen our integration setup. It's pretty simple, especially compared to some of our other integrations that you might all be familiar with. Zach, I know we were talking about it. You don't even really need me to set this up. It's that simple. You could do this on your own. So let's go back to our event dashboard, and let's go ahead and create an event here. So here's our standard create flow. Again, you just recently saw this. Let's host a webinar, maybe measuring, I cannot spell right, ROI on virtual events, something that we are all have top of mind right now. Again, for my integration, I have to click the FM testing event for that to trigger. We'll leave our location as TBD. And then here's the date and time. So a big call out here. I'm gonna set this webinar for tomorrow, just so it's easy to find in our BlueJeans platform. But a call out here. You in Splash have the ability to leave a event set as TBD. BlueJeans requires a start date and end time. So if you do not put a start date and time, you will have an error. If you forget to put an end time, it will default to a 2-hour webinar. You can always adjust that in the event settings of Splash or in BlueJeans, but just a good tool to know. So I'm gonna say we're having this webinar at the same time tomorrow. I just have to choose a theme here. Zach went through and showed us the webinar theme. I would probably use that in this instance, but for the sake of this demo, that doesn't really matter too much. And now that we have this page, there's two things we're gonna look at. That in the background created an event in BlueJeans. So let's take a look at that really quickly. If I come over to our BlueJeans platform, and just a note, I am in our events tab. We specifically integrate with BlueJeans events. If I give this a quick little refresh here, we should see our new webinar right up top. So upcoming events, I set it for tomorrow, like we mentioned, just so it would be easy to find, measuring ROI on virtual events. And one thing you'll notice here, I have 0 attendees for this event currently. Nobody has RSVP'd, nobody has been added manually. So let's go through that process real quick. So very simple RSV. Of course, you can capture any information you want on this form. Just note that email is currently the only field that BlueJeans accepts. And if I come back to our event here, give ourselves another quick refresh. We now see that we have 1 attendee. If I open up that attendee list, it is the email that I just used to RSVP. Pretty seamless integration. As you guys can all see, it is in real time. The last piece I want to show here before I go back to the deck is just some of the confirmation messaging I got. So right here, to that email that I just registered with, right? I got a confirmation email from BlueJeans. Hey, thanks for attending. Here's the information. Here's my unique link to join my webinar. And here's my calendar file, so I can get it on my calendar. I won't forget about it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But this is something we definitely want you to leverage, making it so easy to get this confirmation into somebody's inbox with all the correct information that they need. So I hope you guys thought that was really interesting. I'm even having fun demoing it. But I'm going to go back to the deck here. Awesome. So we took a look at our kind of the full BlueJeans integration there. The only thing we didn't take a look at was actually hosting the webinar and looking at that check-in data, but you could trust that that is in real time as well. So Zach, you wanna take a stab at recapping everything we just took a look at?
Yeah, let's talk about all the parts of the integration that are automated, which I think is the most exciting part. So an event created in Splash will automatically create the webinar in BlueJeans. All Splash registrants will automatically sync to the BlueJeans event list. Confirmation email is auto-triggered from BlueJeans with the webinar URL to the participants. And we also found out that the moderator receives a automatic email as well. And here's the big one. When an attendee joins the webinar, they're automatically checked into Splash, and that information will trickle down into all your other systems of record.
Yeah, that's great and exactly accurate. I think just the point to stress here is that this is all, every one of those automation pieces are all happening in real time. So there's no real lag you have to worry about when somebody RSVPs to your event versus the time it takes to get that BlueJeans confirmation, or vice versa. If you wanted to do post-event follow-up immediately after, we give you the ability to do that without having to wait a day or so.
Yeah, and I suppose the one other thing we should call out, and this will be the case for the other two integrations we talk about today, you set this up once and every event automatically benefits from this. You are not setting this up for every webinar that you do. Set it once, forget it.
Yeah, exactly accurate. And I think the big takeaway there is those authentication details that we talked about that you may need to activate your IT team for, that is a one-time activation, right? Like Zach mentioned, you just set that up once and you never have to worry about it again.